Hey everybody, what is going on? It's Pokey Tears. It's been a while, as it always is, seemingly. You know, I'm a busy guy, but I'm bringing you a tier list here today. Finally getting a chance to record. I figured I would do one that's kind of popular right now, I guess. It's just, favorite mainline Pokemon games. We're really, getting into the nitty gritty with this one. So this is obviously going to be more subjective. Do I have it in my head that some of these games are objectively better than others? Of course I do. But, I'm just going to try and be like, this is how I see it. This is my opinion. This is how I feel about each game. So the four tiers are my favorite Pokemon games, games that I kind of just think are good, games that are like, whatever, and then games that make me sad. Because, like, all Pokemon games, all mainline games, I have enjoyed to some extent just because of the gameplay formula and how I feel about it and how much I like it. But, like, if you're in the bottom tier, it's like you're only good because you're Pokemon. Everything else is yikes. Anyway, I'm gonna try my best to do ordered tiers, but I don't know if I'll be able to order everything super specifically as we go, but we'll see. Hopefully, I'll be able to. All right, we'll start. Put it in chronological order. Start with red and blue. Uh, you know, Gen 1 is what it is. Kanto is a solid region, but these games are bogged down by engine issues, limited options, bad stat distribution because of no special attack and special defense. Bad move sets, just a lot of bad. Still a fair amount of good in there. Um, Kanto's a classic region. There are plenty of good designs. It's just you know hard to come back to with regard to some of the other games that are on here. Yellow is a little bit more unique. I'm gonna put it in the same tier but above. Red and blue because there's a reason to come back to yellow, whereas like I really don't feel like there's a reason to ever play red and blue unless you're specifically wanting to play red and blue. Whereas with yellow, I feel like, it's a little bit more challenging. Um, there are some interesting events that happen. There's a reason to play it. Even though it did get remade, as did red and blue, I feel like it has a reason to be played alongside its remakes, whereas Red and Blue's remakes, there's no reason to play Red and Blue anymore, which is probably a theme that you'll see for some of these games, including Gold and Silver. If you watch Pokemon challenges, which I'm sure a bunch of you do because this is a Pokemon YouTube channel and he's very big on YouTube, with regard to Pokemon, obviously. He gave a great explanation in a video about why these games suck. um, and I agree with pretty much all of his points. Like, the Pokemon are underwhelming for the most part. It's super reliant on Kanto and nostalgia. The Johto part of the adventure is very kind of not scaled properly and shallow, and then Kanto is the definition of shallow, and I propped it up a lot more when I was a kid. These games were like mysteries to me because I had a copy of Silver for most of my life, but because of the way the battery packs work with the old cartridges, I could never get anywhere past like the third gym because I had to play all in one sitting and I couldn't really play a video game for more than like a couple hours straight when I was a kid. So there was so much mystery surrounding like, ooh, Blackthorn City, like that sounds super cool. Oh, you go to Kanto. I wonder what's that like. I don't know if I'll ever know. And then the remakes came out, and as I got older, I played the remakes. I was able to play these games in full because of emulation, and I started to realize that they weren't all that. But these games definitely used to be high tier for me, and have gone nothing but down ever since. And then Crystal is kind of the same deal. Is I don't yeah, I mean it's better just because there's a little bit more of a unique story with Suicune and some cool stuff happens and yada yada, but again, same flaws as Gold and Silver, realistically. Alright, Ruby and Sapphire are gonna go into good. I think this is, where Pokemon, in my opinion, really started getting good. Kind of as a series. They made a lot of mechanical changes that fixed things. The games just run super well. The balancing is good. The Pokedex is good. The new Pokemon are good. The region is fun to explore. There's a good story. Just very solid games overall. And then Emerald takes that, makes the games more difficult, makes the story better, makes some of the fights, more interesting, makes the Pokedex better, just is the best version of Ruby and Sapphire. Like, Ruby and Sapphire are good, but Emerald is, definitely the superior of the three. That scene where Rayquaza comes down from wherever he's at and screams at Groudon and Kyogre is always going to be one of my favorite video game cutscenes ever, despite it being like 5 seconds long and nothing really happening. Like, it's one of those moments as a kid when you see it for the first time that you never forget. It's like, damn, Rayquaza's badass. He just came down and told him the fucking business. Anyway, Emerald's great. Ruby and Sapphire are good. I like the Hoenn games. FireRed and LeafGreen are gonna go at the top of good for right now. They are, in my opinion, the definitive way to play Kanto. They take the new mechanics that Gen 3 gives to the Pokemon games and makes the experience from Red and Blue what it was, but just better and more difficult and more fleshed out. There's the Sebi Islands, which I like personally a good amount. Good solid games. Not in the favorites tier just because I don't think they do anything crazy. They are like remakes of the Kanto games, and Kanto is kind of limited as a whole, as a region, just because there's nothing like the problem I see with the Kanto games, nothing really big happens. Like, oh, you took down Giovanni at Silphco. It's like, he's still hanging around. It's not like there are these grand stakes at scale, which Pokemon doesn't need there to be that. But I kind of like that sometimes in Pokemon. Like, you'll kind of see with my favorite games that, like, I do like the bigger, more intimidating stories that aren't like, stupid, which I'll explain that too. But yeah, that's just kind of what holds back Kanto for me. It's just a very like solid region, and these games are the best at displaying that. But it's not like anything crazy, I guess. But yeah, FireRed and LeafGreen, good. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. I've seen a lot of tier lists put these in bottom tier. I don't think they're quite that bad. But God, Pokemon Diamond and Pearl have not aged particularly well. And there are many reasons for that, but they are slow. The Dex is probably the worst national Dex in all of Pokemon. Multiple gym leaders, this goes for all of the Johto games as well. The gym leaders and Elite Four members, there are some Pokemon on their teams that are like, why? Why not use this? Why not have this? Not Berg. What the fuck is his name? Flint, great example of that. Volkner, another good example of that. the regional dex, or the national dex, yeah, the regional dex is really what holds this game back for me, and the fact that there's another game that invalidates these two games so heavily, like it's kind of not even funny, because Platinum is easily in the top tier because it took all of the good things about Diamond and Pearl and removed a lot of the bad things and made the good things even better at the same time. The story is awesome. The regional dex adds a bunch of Pokemon to take a terrible dex and make it into a very good dex. It's probably not the best in the series, but like it's up there. Just because you get that many more strong options of diverse types, it just completely opens up the game. You don't have to feel like you have to use half of the same team in every single playthrough. Good sense of difficulty. Good music. I haven't really brought up music yet for any of the games because the first time I played Platinum was the first time I really kind of listened for and used the music to kind of help my interpretation of video games. Platinum was literally the first game to ever do that. And it was in the Distortion world specifically when that happened, when you hear the Giratina theme for the first time, I was like, holy shit. The video game music has never made me feel this way before. Like, granted, I'm like 9 years old, but it was a crazy experience. And music in video games has forever been something that impacts my opinion in a subconscious and conscious way of games. So that goes to show you like what the impact it was on me. But yeah, Platinum, excellent. I can't think of any negatives besides like HMs, which obviously those plague Diamond and Pearl too. The HM stuff in Gen 4 was really bad, and I don't think we should shy away from that. But everything else I love about these games. HeartGold and SoulSilver, they're going to go at the bottom of good. I think they're overrated. I think they do Johto a lot better than the original three games do. But it's hard with the structure that they have for Johto games to really be standouts. Obviously, the music was a lot better. Well, not a lot better, but it was like kind of where it needed to be. The world seemed more alive in these games, which I think goes to show like this is the first graphical enhancement, because obviously you have a graphical enhancement here, but it's not like, I feel like it wasn't as big of a jump as these games to these games was a big jump in terms of graphics. Obviously the Johto problems are still there that I talked about before. Not a great regional dex. Difficulty was not perfected in these games, although it is better. It's not perfect. Pokemon following you around was cool. I mean, it was like, hey, that's pretty cool. I was never huge on it. I know a lot of people wanted it back for a long time. And now that it's kind of becoming more of a mainstay, it's like, okay. That might have more to do with the games being in 3D and it not being quite like the same perspective. But anyway, these games definitely had a lot good going for them. They would maybe be higher, to be quite honest, if somehow the Pokewalker could be intertwined with them in emulation, because how a game is played in emulation does matter to me up until X and Y and beyond, because it's hard to emulate those games. For me, how a game is emulated, Gens 1 through 5, does matter. And my favorite experience playing HeartGold and SoulSilver had a lot to do with the Pokewalker. I love that thing. I really think that enhanced my experience more than I realized, because I'll go back to these games without the Pokewalker. I probably had the Pokewalker for my first 2 or 3 playthroughs of these games, and I lost the Pokewalker I had, and uber expensive, not worth buying on the internet to get back. So it's just like something feels like it's missing from these games when I play them now, and I think that might be it. So if they had the Pokewalker, they might be higher than Ruby and Sapphire, but probably like that's it. All right, Pokemon Black and White are gonna go in the same spot as FireRed and LeafGreen did. I really liked the idea of having no Pokemon from older regions. It made it feel like a really like a brand new game, like a brand new experience. Because when I first play through a game, try to use only the Pokemon that are in the decks. Um, when I make like my first team, um, or that are new to the games, I should say. But yeah, so I really like the story. I like all the art. The music is very good. Um, it just like all those elements, good story, good decks, good Pokemon, good graphics, good music. They were all good, and then just were like a little bit worse than how I felt about Platinum, basically. So like, take how I feel about Platinum, and everything is kind of just like a step down, and that's why they're at the top of good instead of at the top of favorites, because like they're very solid games. They do most things right. They are faster and have less of an HM bog down than do Platinum and the Sinnoh games, but um, they were just never like my favorites. Like I can recognize how good they are, but they were never my favorites. And then for Black and White 2, it's kind of just the same deal. I mean, maybe I'll just put like that, just to kind of show that they're all tied at the top of good. That's how I feel about, Black and White 2. Pretty much the exact thing I said about Black and White is how I feel about Black 2, White 2. Very solid. Pokemon are good. Just not quite up to the snuff of, Platinum. Emerald, they're below because, I used to have them above Emerald. All four of these games, I had them above Emerald, but I find myself going back to Emerald so much, and these games like not a ton. Like I don't know how to explain it. I feel like maybe they're better, but just in terms of how I see them, and if I had to pick a game to play between the two, I would pick Emerald. Do I think that they're better? Probably, maybe, but I just kind of enjoy Emerald more. And then I think obviously Platinum's better. But anyway, going back to Black 2 and White 2, the story, it became clear to me when I was a kid. It's like Black 2 and White 2, they've never done this before. Why are they doing this? And it was a continuation. It was because they wanted to continue directly with the story from Black and White. And you know how I felt with Platinum and like how it introduced music and video games to me. This was kind of the first game. Again, I think I'm 12 at this point. I never really took story super into account for video games. These were the first games that made me kind of more so realize that story can be important. Story can affect how you feel about a game. It's not as strong as video game or as music and gameplay are for me. Like story is kind of on the lower end of what I care about in games, but a good story can absolutely elevate a game. I think a bad story doesn't do as much to negatively impact a game unless it's really bad, but a good story can really pull a game up. And that's kind of how I feel about this whole generation is like the story is probably the best there's ever been in a Pokemon game, but they still are just slightly behind kind of the other games. All right, X and Y are going to go up right here. So X and Y are kind of just like fun and relaxing for Pokemon in terms of Pokemon experiences, which is like not really what I usually want when I play Pokemon. Like, I feel like it's a good beginner Pokemon game, which is how I feel about a few of the games on this list, but I feel like X and Y, if X and Y is your first Pokemon experience, I think that's a good thing. But if you play other Pokemon games and are like good at Pokemon and playing Pokemon games, X and Y is kind of just like, all right, well, there are way too many broken options that I can just stomp through this game with. And its story kind of sucks. I don't love these games' story. I feel like they're like trying to do something similar to Gen 4, Gen 3, maybe Gen 5, and they just kind of fall on their face. But they're fun. They have a very wide Pokedex, some solid battles in there, but like the Elite Four members only having 4 Pokemon each is kind of just the perfect way to sum up Gen 6, or well, X and Y, I should say, because it's like, why? If these games were just harder, they would be way higher, but they're so easy. Um, the all XP share was not built properly for these games, and if you play it without it, it's kind of just like, it doesn't really make it harder. It just makes it more grindy. So X and Y, I almost want to put them in good, but they're too easy. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are gonna go here. So Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are below the original Ruby and Sapphire. Again, just because they're a little bit too easy. I don't love the remade music. Like, I will say, for these games and these games, I love the remade music. Whereas for Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I kind of prefer the original soundtracks to these games. Again, a little bit too easy. Gen 3, I feel like part of me feels like it didn't need a remake, which is like, there's no physical special split in the original game, so like they kind of did need a remake, but I don't know. Just like, I didn't love Dex Nav. It was kind of just whatever. Like, I'm not gonna. I know what Pokemon I'm gonna catch. / I'm playing a Nuzlocke. I can't really use this to great effect because I don't have the Pokemon I'm gonna catch yet because of Duke's Claws. So like, they just kind of like are a little bit too easy. The music isn't as good. They're still good. Like, it's still the Hoenn games that you know and love. They're just a little bit easier and a little bit less memorable. That's kind of how I feel about them. The Delta episode was super awesome, though. I wish that post games in modern games, like this was like, I will say Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I'm looking at all the rest of the games that are left. Besides Legends Arceus, which is kind of its own beast. This is the last good post game in Pokemon. Like, good post game, great post game, good post game, decent post game, good post game, not great post game, terrible post game actually. And then these all had like whatever post games. These are the last good post games, and then all of these bad, except for you. We'll talk about you. I don't know if my mouse is working. I'm pointing at Legends Arceus. Anyway, let's move on to Sun and Moon, which are going to go, I think, like right here. Sun and Moon, great Pokedex. I love the Alolan Pokedex. The story was solid. Not anything crazy, but the story was solid. I like a lot of the cutscenes. There's a good amount of difficulty. The games are paced well. You never feel like you're in like a bog. There's always kind of something happening. However, what holds these games back from being up here, and you'll see this with these two games too, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, the replayability, because of the cutscenes and not being able to skip them, is bad. It can ruin the experience. These games do not go quickly because of those cutscenes and because of kind of how the game operates and how handholdy it is and how you're kind of jumping from each dialogue exposition to each cutscene to, if you could skip cutscenes and if the text scroll was a lot faster, both Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon would be in the favorites tier. No questions asked. Like I said, a lot to like about Sun and Moon, but the first playthrough is always going to be a whole lot better than the repeat playthroughs because, you know, those cutscenes and that and how much dialogue there is, it's just like, man, it's a shame. But still great games. Great, like I said, I really like the Alola region. I like the decks. I like most of the trainers that you fight. I like pretty much all the characters except for like How. How's okay. Gladion, same thing. But like, I really like what they did with Lily's story. I really like what they did with the Aether Foundation and Team Skull. Like, there's a lot of good things going on. Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are going to be just a bit higher because they are the most difficult, in my opinion, games to Nuzlocke, if not to just play in general, in the entire series. These games, if you want to play a hard Nuzlocke or just kind of like a hard game, play these games. Play Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. They will kick your ass at certain points. And not in like an unfair way, like in a way that's like, damn, these games demand a lot out of you. But I mean, they still have the same problems and kind of and problems and positives, negatives and positives as Sun and Moon. They're just a little bit harder with a little bit worse of a story. But like I said, I value gameplay over story, so they're a little bit higher for me. Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are gonna I'm thinking about whether or not I want to put them above, or I'm gonna put them above, just because there are so many updated mechanics and the graphics look better, and there's no game-breaking shit in them as there is in Gen 1. Obviously, these games are too easy. You don't really actually fight wild Pokemon. You just throw Pokeballs at them, and like I said, EXP share was not entirely used properly. It's not like they're the easiest games in the series, but like they're definitely very easy. I really, really like the riding Pokemon in these games in particular because of like you can only ride on certain Pokemon, but it looks, or not the riding, the walk behind, because of the riding, because you can ride certain Pokemon will just walk behind you. I do like you being able to ride the Pokemon, though. They are very polished games. They're very safe. They're just really not difficult. FireRed and LeafGreen presents a more challenging experience with less bells and whistles, but just better overall gameplay. Whereas these games have a lot of bells and whistles, have a lot of cool stuff involved in them, but they're just a little bit too easy for my taste. But they're still better than the originals for sure. All right, Sword and Shield. Yeah, this isn't. Oh, whoopsie. This is not a hot take. I recognize that. A lot of people share this opinion about Sword and Shield. They suck. In terms of Pokemon games, they suck. The visuals are bad. Everybody knows that. The story sucks. The story is non-existent. It's so bad. The difficulty is really not there for the most part. There are a couple of hard battles. There's not much going on. The DLC was lukewarm, underwhelming. Didn't care for it. The Dex is solid. I do think the Dex gets a little bit too much hate. I do like a lot of the new Pokemon that were introduced in Sword and Shield, but the region itself is whatever. It's bland. The gameplay, bland. And then the story, man, oh god, it's so bad. This is the only Pokemon game where the story breaks the experience, because there's a certain point where you're just fighting gyms, You fight gym, walk to the next town, fight gym, walk to the next town, and nothing important happens. Like, nothing that you care about happens. I don't care about whatever his name is, who destroys the mantle with the Copperage. I don't care about Rose and is obviously the bad guy the whole time. Oh, wow. Like, you can do that once with Sun and Moon, and it's like, oh, it's a decent twist. You do the exact same thing again with zero stakes, and it is like, woohoo, great. Yeah. Sword and Shield, bad. Bad. Wild area, garbage. I hated the wild area. It was stupid. It was a waste of time. I didn't like being in the wild area at all. It was very like choppy and the graphics. It's just bad. If the entire game looked like the town with the fairy gym, I would feel differently about the visuals because that town is gorgeous. But like the rest of the game is just either whatever or bad, and then the story sucks, which I already talked about. Anyway, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl go right here. What does Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl do better than the originals? Well, better decks, more fleshed out underground mechanic, that's it. I think that's it. Oh, and better HMs, better HM use. Oh boy, what did these games do wrong? Take way too much inspiration from the originals, which is what their plan was, but it was just like, I think what goes into these games being where they are on the tier list is how disappointing they were. Like, everybody wanted Gen 4 remakes for so long. There were so many issues to fix. It's like, if you make these games faster, if they had made like a platinum remake, that's the thing. If they make Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl like evil platinum or whatever, I think this is at least in good tier, maybe not top tier, but like all the new stuff was just so whatever. And then the games that they're based on are not that great. And again, they did fix the speed, and they did fix the HMs, and they fixed the bad Pokedex. They did fix all of those things. But it definitely felt like there was something missing. With the art style, and the music was whatever, and there's just not a lot great about them. They were very mid remakes. But like I said, they're not bad games. Like, Pokemon games are still good games. If this had been the original Diamond and Pearl, I'm sure people would have liked them more. But these 4 games are down here because this exists. This crown jewel of Pokemon exists. All 4 of these games just pale in comparison. There's no reason to play any of them. Unless you only own a Switch. Then play Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl. I get it. But like, damn. Not great. Alright. Legends Arceus. Oh. Oh, man. I was originally more excited about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl when they were kind of both getting coverage. And then I played them, and then I was like way more excited for Legends Arceus because we were getting more details about it. Oh man, they were so good. They're hard to even call a mainline Pokemon game. I totally agree with that. Like, Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, and Legends Arceus are like, well, are they really mainline games? Legends Arceus, I would say is not a mainline game, but I don't care because I would say it's my second favorite Pokemon experience, period, behind Platinum. Legends Arceus is amazing. The gameplay is so much fun. This is the first Pokemon game where I actually felt like inspired and excited about completing the decks. The story is really solid. The characters are good. The graphics are solid. And like I said, man, the gameplay was so fun. I had so much fun just kind of dicking around, catching Pokemon, finding items, but also exploring the worlds, or the lands, whatever they were called. finding the alpha Pokemon, finding stuff about like the lore, finding the new Hisuian forms. I just really like the concept for you're in the past of Pokemon. Like Game Freak was very bold with this game. They did a lot of things that were like, huh, is that gonna work? And then they worked. The catching system worked amazingly well. I think the battle system was nothing spectacular, but the focus of the game was not battling. And that's where I think it excuse me. That's where I think it strays from other Pokemon games in terms of its quality as well as its kind of gameplay, core gameplay. Is like they did something so different, but put the AAA budget and the AAA time, well, not time, because they don't give any games enough time, but they made it the AAA game, despite it kind of being a spin-off. It's kind of a spin-off. It's not really a mainline game, but they put that Game Freak quality that we know they have into it, and I think they created a beautiful game. If they make another Legends game, it'll be the most excited I've ever been for a Pokemon game, period, because I'll be like, it's gonna be Legends Arceus, but they're gonna know more of what they're doing. They're gonna have more experience making this type of game under their belt. They're gonna add new mechanics. It's gonna be great. If they make Legends Celebi, I think that could be amazing. Legends anything. Legends Mewtwo, dope. Legends Deoxys, hell yeah. Legends fucking Victini, I don't know, cool. Anyway, I love Legends Arceus. The music too, phenomenal. The post game, because of like what the post game is, and Arceus doing the Arceus fight and fighting the guy, I don't remember his name, that you thought was your buddy the whole time, but then like summons Giratina. All that shit is so cool, and it's such a fun post game. And I liked completing the decks. I thought it was actually fun to go out and like find the Pokemon that I was missing, and to do the side quests that you need to like get the Pokeball that you know what I mean. It was all just fun. And that's something I have not been able to say about a game in a very long time with the Pokemon title on. It is just fun. Speaking of things being just fun, Scarlet and Violet are going to go right about here. Alright, so Scarlet and Violet, the visuals and the running speed, I should say, were pretty much the only bad things about these games. The new Dex was awesome. The story was really good. The open world was not really an open world, but I never expected it to be, so it didn't really hamper my experience of it at all. Like, yeah, you can play it like an open world game, but I played it on a linear path, which I'm sure many of you did, because I just don't think Pokemon works as an open world if you don't scale the levels. But like I said, traversal was fun, finding secrets was fun, finding items was fun, finding new Pokemon was fun, exploring was just fun. It was just a fun experience. The story was good, the music was good, the new Pokemon were excellent. Nothing really blows you away about the games. They're just like solid fun that you just want to play throughout the entire experience. It's just like, yes, this is just fun. This is just high quality. And that's all Pokemon needs to be. It's just fun. Like, they can be super grand with like crazy stories and like that can elevate them. But at the end of the day, if you just make a very fun game with good battling mechanics, I should say terrestrialization. Since Gen 6, there's been like a core mechanic. Terrestrialization might be my favorite one. Mega Evolution was really cool from a design standpoint, but terrestrialization from a gameplay standpoint, super fun. And I will credit to Scarlet and Violet something I haven't credited to any other game. I'm more into competitive battling than I have been in my entire life, and I think that's a credit to terrestrialization and the new Pokemon that were introduced in Scarlet and Violet, because a lot of them are so interesting to battle with. And the difficulty of these games, I should say, is not super high. If these games were more difficult in like a fun challenge kind of way, I think they would be higher. But as it stands, they're good. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're at the top of good. They were very fun. I look forward to whatever DLC hopefully comes. I would love if you could go back in time and forward in time into like these landscapes with all these paradox Pokemon. I'm not getting my hopes up too high, but man, that would be amazing. Scarlet and Violet without DLC are already great. With DLC, only room to improve. If it's bad DLC, it's just kind of like, oh well. But if it's good DLC, then it's like, hell yeah. Yeah, this is the list. Quickly, I'll save that for a different video. But this is how I feel. You can take a good hard look at it. This is how I feel about each game. Pokemon is just always going to be fun. Like I said at the beginning of the video, even the games in the bottom tier, I still enjoy playing overall more than the average video game. Maybe besides Sword and Shield. Maybe Sword and Shield deserve their own tier below the frowny face, but I like making an even amount of tiers just because that's how my brain functions. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I would very much appreciate it if you like and subscribe. I know I kind of don't deserve it because of how inactive I am, but I am trying to upload. I am trying to record. It's just hard to get time and space to do so because of my situation. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. I will hopefully be able to see you sooner rather than later with another tier list or something else. Who knows? But hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.